Most school clothes are made of polyester that not only increases the plastic pollution, but also reduces the garment breathability. The seams do not appear to be durable either. Since I have been making the clothes for myself for over 2 decades, and I have been making most of the clothes for my child as well, the uniform shopping has made me a little bit nervous. I have accepted that my offspring will have a bought cardigan, jumper and tights, but I will make the skirts and the shirts come what may. The skirt patterns for the junior school do not look too complicated. The school that my daughter is going to attend has not specified anything beyond the skirt colour. So I'm going to make a simple A-line skirt with elasticated waist at the back.
To draft the pattern, I will need 4 measurements: a waist circumference, a hip circumference, a distance from the waist to the hip, and a skirt length. We'll position the waistline on the left of my paper and the hem on the right. I am drafting 1/4 of the skirt. Firstly, a few centimeters from the left side of the paper, I am marking a line that is 1/4 of the hip circumference plus 10% ease. My child's hip measurement is 64 centimeters, so the waistline measurement that I'm using is 17.5 centimeters. 16 centimeters below the hip line, I am marking a line that is 1/4 of the hip circumference plus 30% ease, and for my child that is 21 centimeters. I want the skirt to be knee-high, so the skirt length is going to be the waist to knee measurement minus 3 centimeters. I am removing the 3 centimeters because I am going to add a waistband that is 3 centimeters high. Here the measurement that I used is 40 centimeters. I draw a hem the desired skirt length away from the waistline. Next, I draw a line that connects the waistline and hip line and extend it to the hem and above the waist. I need to extend the side seam above the waist to create a straight angle when I connect side seam to the waistline. The height above the waistline does not matter as much, but in my example I'm using around 2 centimeters. I connect the side seam with waistline with a curved line, ensuring the straight angle at the side seam. Afterwards I measure the side seam to be the same skirt length as on the center front. As you can see, the side seam finishes way above the hemline, but that is as to be expected. We need to connect the side seam with a hem with a straight angle and smooth the hemline with a French curve, maintaining a straight angle at the point the hem connects with the side seam. Then I cut my pattern and mark a fold line to remind myself of the center front and center back line. My fabric choice is 100% cotton and black, and I have bought 2 meters of it on sale, costing me £7. I already have 2.5 centimeter wide elastic in my stash, and I should be able to make 4 skirts from this amount of fabric. I do not draw the seam allowances on the paper pattern to allow me to tweak the seam allowances as required for the seam finishes or fabric that I choose to use. In this instance, my seam allowances are 2 centimeters for sides, as I'm going to use French seams, 1 centimeter at the top and 2.5 centimeters for narrow hem. I also need to cut the waistband for the skirt, which is 8 centimeters high, and the length of the total waist measurement for the skirt plus 2 centimeters. I am sewing the side seams with wrong sides together and with just our 1 centimeter seam allowance. Next, I press the seam to blend stitching and then I press the seam open. I then trimmed the seam allowances to less than half a centimetre. And turn the skirt to the wrong side and press with a steam iron. I finished the French seams from the wrong side of the skirt by sewing with just our half centimetre seam allowance. Then I pressed the seam to blend the stitching, and then I pressed the seam to one side. If I was sewing clothes for myself, then I would be finishing the waistline, but because I am not hanging the skirt to stretch the fabric, I am moving on to the hem finish. I turned up the hem by 2 cm the wrong side and pressed. I'm using this slightly curved tool that I created from cardstock and marked 2 cm from the edge to make the pressing easier. Then I stitched the hem very close to the edge. I then trimmed the seam allowances close to the stitching. Next, I pressed the seam to blend it with the fabric, and turned up the hem just over the stitch line and pressed as a guide. I then moved the skirt to the sewing machine and stitched the adapted rolled hem close to the edge of the fabric. I sew together the short ends of the waistband with the right sides together with 1 cm seam allowance. I then press the seam to blend and then press the seam open. Afterwards, I turned up one long edge to just under 1 cm to the inside of the waistband and pressed with a steam iron. I marked notches on the center front and center back of the skirt. I then marked the center front and side points on the unpressed edge of the waistband. The seam line of the waistband is going to be at the back of the skirt. Then I attached the waistband to the skirt, matching the notches on the center front and back and side seams. I sew the seams with 1 cm allowance. I then press the seam to blend. Then I pressed the seam open and then I pressed it up to the waistband. Next, I folded over the waistband and pinned it from the right side, catching the folded edge. Then I stitched in the ditch from the right side, catching the other edge of the waistband. I left a gap at the back to fit through the elastic. Then I measured the half of the skirt's waist and marked a point from both side seams on the front that is 1/3 of this measurement. Before using the elastic, I stretch it a couple of times to ensure that it doesn't slack after sewing. The length of the elastic that I'm using is 10% less than the waist circumference. My child's waist is 58 cm, so I'm using 52 cm long elastic. I pulled the elastic through the skirt waistband and stitched it together with a zigzag stitch. I then pulled and moved the elastic around until there almost are no gathers at most of the front of the skirt between the marks. Then I sew over the skirt and the elastic at the mark points that I made earlier to keep the elastic and gathers in place. As you can see, my markings were almost gone at this point, but I still managed to locate them.
This is the finished skirt. I went on to make 3 more. Hopefully that will be sufficient for a school week.